When you hit that point where you need to hire subcontractors, how do you scale your business? This is indeed an excellent question that most private investigators will eventually ask themselves at some point in their PI career. Let's first look at what scalability is. In the old Cambridge Dictionary, it is described as the ability of a business or system to grow larger. I would further that definition for the private investigation business world by adding this: the necessity to achieve premium business performance while under the stress of an expanded workload. Now, why would I go about and complicate it that much, you ask? Because simple definitions are great for simple understanding. However, in the world of business, we should always have success at the forefront of all of our thoughts when we're making business decisions. Without that forethought and planning for success as the end result, we may end up making very large mistakes that will hinder or even permanently damage our business. What damages can occur from attempting to scale or grow our business, you ask? Another great question for us to explore. There are many issues with scaling or growing our business that we need to keep an eye out for. One of the biggest challenges in scaling up a PI business is making sure that we do not substitute the additional costs that it takes to grow our business with our time. This will leave you burned out trying to build a business up. It is really easy to throw your time into your business, but there are only so many hours in the day, folks, only so many days in the week, and all play makes for a sad PI at the end of the day. Focus on your time is important, as you will need to utilize your time managing the business, managing the new clients, managing the new system as you build it, not out there in the field doing the surveillance yourself. This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit orep.org for a quote today. Now I'm going to focus on surveillance business to build a scenario for this video. We will assume our business does insurance fraud investigations. Now, let's also assume we're at a good point where we have grown our business to the level where we are working full-time in the field. That means we are doing 40 hours a week of surveillance. We will also assume that we charge $85 an hour on a flat rate basis. In other words, our contract with the insurance company only pays for the field work time. No pay for travel, no pay for time, mileage, report, video editing, or anything else. This is fairly typical for most insurance company contracts, and $85 is getting pretty close to the top tier pay for these type of contracts. Now, being in the top tier, there's no room for us to charge more for our services. So we have basically plateaued or reached max potential revenue with this client. When we do the numbers, it looks good. $85 an hour, 40 hours a week, $3,400 a week, or $170,000 a year. Not too shabby. However, if we add in enough time for travel, report time, video editing time, conducting client updates, research time, email time, billing time, accounting time, everything else that comes into play to run our business, we're probably working closer to 70 hours per week. Trust me, I know from experience, this is what can happen very quickly. So if we adjust up to 70 hours per week worked, our hourly pay now is really around $48. But still, we're getting $170,000 a year in revenues. So even after adjusting for 30% expenses, we have a take home of around $120,000. Not too shabby. So now we decide that we need to adjust our business model to make more revenue so we can continue to grow financially. But how do we do that? Now, one way we might do that is to hire subcontractors to take on more work from our existing clients. If you are doing a good job, most insurance companies will be more than happy to throw more work your way to a point. Insurance companies are businesses too, and they are not going to throw all of their eggs into one basket. So there will be a limit of how much work that they will give you or any one vendor. You as well should not be throwing all of your eggs in one basket. So you should consider going out and trying to come up with new insurance clients to help you scale and grow your business. I know some firms out there that have only one major insurance client. If that works for them, well, then more power to them. I also know that when one insurance company slows things down, has a change in upper management or policy adjustments or conducts annual audits, whatever, then the PI business slows down dramatically as well, and it can create a lot of confusion and concern for their subs, wondering if they're going to ever get more work in the future. Now, going back to our scenario, if we bring on additional clients and we hire our subcontractors to help with that additional work, we are also adding more work onto our already full schedule. It would not be prudent for us to think that we can continue working 40 hours in the field and manage subcontractors properly. So with this in mind, we would need to scale back what we do in field work to allow for us to become the manager and let subs do the field work. Now, if that were me, and I have been through this before, I would focus on getting myself to a management only or mostly management only position in my company. This means I run the business. I do the marketing, I do the sales, I do the accounting, and all of that other office work. And I do the desk work involved in the investigations, such as prepping the case, doing the research, writing the report, all that other stuff. Doing it this way, I am available to answer the phones and emails when clients or subs need to reach me. If you take this approach, then you might do no surveillance, or you only do surveillance when you are the second PI on a multi-operative assignment. So now suddenly our current caseload has dropped to $90,000 a year from $170,000 a year in gross revenues after paying our subs if we pay $40 an hour flat rate, which is pretty much a good industry standard pay for this type of work. So if we double our caseload to 80 hours a week, which would be about 5 cases a week at 8 hours a day and 2 days per case, we can then get to $180,000 gross income after paying our subs. That means at the very minimum, we would need 2 subs working full-time 40 hours a week for us. Then there are the baskets to consider. You do not want to have only 1 or 2 subs working for you full-time for an extended period of time. You run the risk of that sub finding other work at higher pay or something happening to them health-wise or in their personal life or whatever that leaves you high and dry. I would recommend for a scenario like this to have 4 to 6 or more subs. Now you are planning on scaling your business, right? But you could just say, this is great. I can now do office work only, run my business, and be at the same level of pay that I was before and work the hours that I want without killing myself while doing that. And if you want to do that, well, that is just great for you. If you want to continue to scale and grow your business, where do you go from here? I would estimate that you will spend about 5 hours per case managing that case from the time it comes in the email until you send out your final report and your invoice. That is an average. And it's an estimate, folks. You might have some cases that you spend 20 hours on, and you might have some that you spend 1 or 2 hours on. You may have some subs that require a huge amount of time, and you may have some subs that require almost no time to manage. If we assume 5 management hours per case, then we can assume if we have 5 cases a week, it will take 25 hours of our time. So if we want to work no more than 50 hours a week, we might assume that we will have 40 hours from case management and 10 hours for other duties as necessary. With that assumption, we could feasibly take on 8 jobs a week or 128 hours of surveillance a week with those numbers. After we pay our subs, we have a gross annual income of $288,000. Now we are talking some serious revenue growth and scaling of our business. This, however, relates to 416 cases per year. It would also relate to up to 8 or more subs for you as well. This is an average of 1 case a week per sub, which would be a good place to be at. Some subs want to work as much as possible, and you might have some that only want to work 1 or 2 cases a month for them as it's a side gig for them. Managing that many cases and that many subs, and most likely 2 to 4 insurance clients, is going to take a lot of effort. Remember that 5 management hours per case that we talked about earlier? Well, that is easier said than done, folks. You will most likely not be able to limit that to 5 hours if you are using a Big Chief tablet and a number 2 pencil to manage that all. In fact, spreadsheets and to-do lists can only go so far. You will undoubtedly require the assistance of a case management system at some point. There are many case management systems out there, and if you would like me to do a video on some of those systems and what they have to offer, then let me know in the comments down below. Here are other considerations for you as you contemplate this type of growth. Subcontractors come and subcontractors go, folks. You will need to have some level of recruitment and training to accommodate for that. No doubt. You may have 1 or 2 that stick with you long term, but the majority will be replaced at some point in time. You're going to need to do 1099s for your subs every year. This is another time consumption work process for you. You should definitely consider the services of a CPA or a tax accountant to help you with those big tax questions. You might even consider hiring a full service firm that does your accounting, your payroll, your accounts payable, your accounts receivable, and tax prep to help you save time and headaches. The financial piece is what gets most PIs, folks. Are you cut out for management, folks? There is a huge difference between managing your PI business with a lot of subcontractors, which are not employees, by the way, and being a shift supervisor or even a store manager in a corporate environment. In this type of business, you need to become an expert at many, many different levels. You will need a contract for your subcontractors. This contract will spell out the details of your relationship and must steer clear from looking like an employee handbook. If you treat your subs like employees, you will soon find yourself in a heap of legal trouble. Scaling up too fast can lead to serious work product quality issues. If you just go out and you get a bunch of subs lined up and then you go out and you push to get 2 more insurance contracts, you have effectively forced 100% change all at once. One snafu, one issue can compound and leave you in a very bad scenario. If you have one rogue subcontractor, not staying on scene all the time, taking bathroom breaks, not recording everything, always losing the subject, whatever the flaw is, it reflects on you and your business. You can lose an insurance contract, folks, a lot quicker than you can gain one. Make sure you vet, train, and evaluate your subs properly. Now, finances are a huge consideration here too. Most insurance contracts are going to be net 30 to 90 day deals. If it takes 60 days to get paid, then you could be sitting on $90,000 or more of accounts receivable at any given time, and your subs want to get paid as quickly as possible. Make sure your contract with your subs clearly states when they get paid for work completed. Mine says 60 days. However, I prefer no payables on my books, so I have managed my business cash flow to where I pay all of my subcontractors' work almost immediately upon completion. It is not my sub's fault if a client doesn't pay or takes forever to pay, and I don't feel that they should be punished for a company's bad business decisions with delayed payments for work completed. How are you going to hire qualified subs? I suggest you become a member of your state private investigators association. PI associations are great for vetting out subs and locating subs who fit your needs. Raising your fees with insurance companies or defining your fee when negotiating with them is not always practical. Most insurance companies will have their contract, their pay scale, and their procedures to include report and video format. You get to live with their rules or you don't get to play the game. It is that simple. Now, to scale your business, you may also consider adding additional services which you can offer to your existing clients. If you're doing insurance fraud cases, can your client benefit from, let's say, comprehensive background checks or an OSINT investigation? There may be things that you can offer them, and then you could sub that work out and have a good markup on that service. Processes, folks. Have policies and processes in place for everybody. That includes yourself to follow. This will help you ensure that everything stays manageable, trackable, and documented properly. Scaling and growing your business really begins at the idea stage when you first start thinking about doing it. Make that thought process a long-term plan. Where do you plan to be in 10, 15, 20 years down the road? Then you start to connect the dots, put the pieces of the puzzle together, and you decide how you're going to get there. As you build your plan, take time to evaluate potential downfalls and benefits. If I did this right now, how would it affect my business right now? Sometimes the best lessons that we can learn is imagining our what ifs in place of our business as it is today.